Samantha walked into the car showroom dressed casually in jeans and a plain white tee, asking about a high-end automobile. The salesman gave her a long, disapproving look and said, "I'm sorry, but I believe you've come to the wrong place," gesturing sharply toward the exit. As other staff exchanged amused glances and onlookers stared, her face burned with embarrassment, and she left without a word. The very next morning, a shining Rolls-Royce Phantom rolled up outside the dealership, and as the rear door swung open, the salesman's expression turned to shock. No one could have predicted what happened next. The upscale Beacon luxury autos gleamed under the morning sun with its floor-to-ceiling glass walls displaying an array of exotic cars, models from Porsche, Bentley, Aston Martin, and Ferrari that most people only dreamed about. Known to her friends simply as Sam, she strolled through the entrance with her dark ponytail bouncing gently. Her casual white tee, worn jeans, and minimal makeup reflected a woman who valued simplicity over extravagance. At 35, she carried herself with a quiet confidence born of knowing exactly who she was. What wasn't obvious from her unassuming look was that Sam was the founder and driving force behind the Reed Foundation for Children with Disabilities, an organization that had positively impacted thousands of lives long before she met her now husband. She had built the foundation from scratch, pouring her heart and expertise in special needs development into creating real change. Once inside the showroom, her eyes immediately landed on a sleek midnight blue coupe, the perfect gift for her sister's 40th birthday. Her sister, Carolyn, had always dreamed of owning a luxury car, and after overcoming breast cancer the previous year, Sam was determined to surprise her with something extraordinary. Even though her financial success, her foundation's achievements, and her personal investments had given her plenty of comfort, very few knew that across the showroom, Logan Carter, the sales manager, was straightening his navy suit and adjusting his blue tie. Proud of his knack for identifying serious buyers at a glance, he couldn't help but smirk when he saw Sam in her simple attire. A young salesman named Ethan approached her with a friendly "Good morning" and said, "Welcome to Beacon Luxury Autos. I'm Ethan. Is there a particular car you're interested in today?" Before Sam could reply, Logan interjected, "I'll handle this, Ethan," and turned his attention to her with a practiced smile that failed to reach his eyes as he asked, "Ma'am, what are you looking for today?" And so began Sam's day at the dealership, a day that would soon alter everyone's outlook. "Actually," Sam said pleasantly, "I'm interested in that midnight blue coupe," pointing to the car listed at a price of $285,000. Logan's smile tightened. He'd seen too many people come in to fantasize about cars they could never afford. With end-of-quarter quotas looming and 3 serious buyers expected that afternoon, he had no time for what he considered daydreams. "That is the limited edition Azure. Only 15 were made this year," he declared, emphasizing every syllable as if addressing a child. "Perhaps I could direct you to our pre-owned section." "They're in a different building, about 3 blocks east," Sam replied, noticing how his eyes briefly lingered on her casual outfit and worn sneakers. Accustomed to such judgments, she had chosen this style deliberately, finding freedom and authenticity in her modest way of dressing despite her vast wealth. "I'd really like to know more about this car," she said politely. "Is it possible to see the interior?" Logan's face soured, and behind him, 2 other salespeople exchanged knowing looks. "The Azure is by appointment only," he fibbed smoothly, adding, "Our serious clients usually schedule private viewings." Just then, a well-dressed couple entered and Logan's demeanor changed instantly. "Please excuse me," he said to Sam without so much as looking her way. "Why don't you take a brochure? Ethan can help you with that," he suggested. As he strode over to greet the couple, arms outstretched, welcoming Mr. and Mrs. Henderson back as if he had known them for ages, Ethan, the younger salesman who couldn't have been older than 25, gave Sam an apologetic smile. "I'm really sorry about this," he murmured softly. "Would you like me to tell you about the Azure?" Sam answered, "I would appreciate that," as Ethan enthusiastically outlined the car's features. All the while, Sam noticed Logan leading the elegantly dressed Hendersons straight to the Azure, opening its door with flair and inviting Mrs. Henderson to sit inside the very car he had claimed was available only by appointment. "That's perfectly all right," Sam assured Ethan, who looked increasingly uncomfortable as she listened. Logan continued his well-rehearsed sales pitch, explaining that the model had an 8-month waiting list, but that he had reserved one for special clients. Mrs. Henderson ran her hand along the exquisite leather interior and remarked, "It's beautiful, but I'm not completely sure about the color. We could discuss custom options." Logan reassured her, and as Sam moved quietly to listen, she said, "Excuse me, I'd like to ask about purchasing this model." Logan's face flushed red as he repeated, "As I mentioned earlier, this car is currently being shown to these customers." His irritation barely concealed. "Perhaps you could return at another time, or as I suggested, check out our pre-owned options." The Hendersons exchanged uneasy looks between Logan and Sam. "I'm specifically interested in this car," Sam stated calmly, adding that it was for her sister's birthday next month. Logan then stepped away from the Hendersons, lowering his voice. "Look, I understand that people like to dream, but this is a business, and this car costs more than most homes. I've been patient, but you're interrupting a genuine sale." Several nearby customers had paused to watch the uncomfortable exchange, and Ethan hovered anxiously on the sidelines. "I'm prepared to make a cash purchase today," Sam declared, maintaining her composure. At that moment, Logan's professional mask finally cracked. He let out a short, harsh laugh that echoed across the showroom. Several heads turned as he scoffed. "A cash purchase, really? This isn't a yard sale. We're talking about $250,000 here. People who can afford these vehicles simply do not dress like that," he said dismissively, gesturing toward her outfit. Sam's cheeks flushed, not with embarrassment but with a slowly rising anger, not for herself, as she had been treated this way before, but for everyone who had ever been judged solely on appearance. "I believe my money is as good as anyone else's," she replied quietly. Logan moved closer, towering over her, and said, "Let me be clear. You're wasting my time and only embarrassing yourself. Either schedule an appointment for a serious discussion dressed appropriately, or please leave." The showroom fell, silent as the Hendersons awkwardly distanced themselves from the car. "Is there a problem here?" a new voice inquired. The dealership's owner, Robert Morgan, had arrived, drawn by the commotion. Logan quickly straightened his tie and responded, "No problem, sir. I was just explaining that we operate by appointment for serious buyers." Robert surveyed the scene, taking in Sam's simple appearance and the attentive crowd, and his expression made it clear where his loyalties lay. "I see," he said. "Miss Reed," Sam supplied, "perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. Our clientele typically, well, they understand the exclusivity of these vehicles." "I understand perfectly," Sam replied steadily, despite the humiliation burning inside her. "Your sales manager has clearly laid out your policies." Logan stepped forward once more, his tone dripping with condescension. "If you're truly interested, which I doubt, you can call for an appointment, but I'd suggest you bring proof of funds and dress the part." He gestured around the showroom, adding, "These cars are for a certain class of people." A murmur rippled through the onlookers as someone snickered. Sam looked around at the judging faces, at Logan's smug look, and the silent approval of his team. She had encountered discrimination before, but never so blatantly in public. "I see," she said simply, with quiet dignity, and then turned to leave. Behind her, she heard Logan mutter, "Some people just don't know their place," as she pushed through the glass doors into the bright morning light. Pulling out her phone, the sting of humiliation faded into a determined smile as she dialed the Reed estate, nestled on 5 quiet acres just outside the city. Its understated elegance revealed nothing of the billions hidden away. At 41, Nathan Reed, the tech visionary who had revolutionized renewable energy storage and built a fortune while keeping a low profile, looked up from his desk as Sam entered his home office. Nathan immediately set aside his work, his 15 years of marriage having taught him to read Sam's expressions with precision. "What happened?" he asked, moving around his desk to face her. Sam sank into a leather chair as the events of the morning washed over her. "It was eye-opening," she said with a slight smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, recounting the condescension, humiliation, and overt discrimination she had experienced at the showroom. Nathan's expression grew somber, yet he said nothing, allowing her space to process. "It's not about me," she eventually said. "I have the luxury of walking away knowing the truth, but how many people are treated like that every day without even realizing they deserve better?" Nathan nodded thoughtfully. Throughout their years together, he had admired Sam's deep concern for others, even when she herself was hurt. "So, what do you want to do about it?" he finally asked. "Part of me just wants to let it go and buy Caroline's gift somewhere else," she admitted. "But then I think of that young salesman Ethan who treated me with respect regardless of my appearance, and all the others who faced judgment without any recourse." Looking directly at Nathan, she continued, "People need to understand that value isn't defined by looks. I don't want revenge. I want awareness." Nathan slowly nodded, a plan forming. "I might have an idea that achieves both," he said. "Nothing too extreme," Sam warned, mindful of his protective nature. "I'm not saying we buy the dealership and fire everyone." Nathan laughed lightly. "Nothing so dramatic," he replied, leaning forward with a sparkle in his eyes. "Education is in order." Together, they devised a plan, not one of retaliation, but one meant to open eyes and change attitudes more effectively than punishment ever could. "Are you sure you don't want to come with me?" Nathan asked. And once their plans were finalized, Sam shook her head. "This isn't about me watching your comeuppance. It's about helping them see past appearances," she said with a smile, adding, "But I expect a full report." As evening settled at home, Nathan made several phone calls to set everything in motion for the following morning, a day that promised a powerful lesson in humility and the perils of assumptions, not just for Logan Carter, but for everyone at Beacon Luxury Autos. The next morning was picture perfect. Logan Carter entered the showroom with a confident stride, adjusting his signature blue tie. The previous day's incident with the casually dressed woman had become a light-hearted story among his colleagues, a tale of another dreamer who didn't fit the expected image of luxury. The showroom sparkled under perfectly arranged lights, with exotic cars positioned to highlight their allure. Logan had just finished a morning meeting, reminding the sales team, "Our time is valuable. We cater to a specific kind of customer. It's not elitism, it's efficiency." Ethan, visibly uncomfortable during the meeting, had remained mostly silent, and Logan made a mental note to speak with him about assessing customers properly. At exactly 10:17 in the morning, the distinctive purr of an exceptional engine drew attention from the expansive glass windows. A vehicle, unlike any other, glided to a stop right at the main entrance. Conversations halted mid-sentence, as even Logan, usually unimpressed by luxury vehicles from being around them every day, felt his heart race. A Rolls-Royce Phantom with an extended wheelbase, this one a custom model in a unique midnight blue finish that seemed to change color. In the sunlight, arrived, conservative estimates placed its value at over $1,200,000. Just then, Robert Morgan, the owner, emerged from his office, drawn by the sudden silence. Logan confirmed the arrival of the Phantom as he moved toward the entrance. An extremely rare configuration indeed. A uniformed chauffeur stepped out, walked around to open the rear door with white-glove precision, and from the vehicle emerged a man of commanding presence. Tall and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that understated his five-figure price tag, his salt and pepper hair was neatly groomed, and his posture exuded authority. Logan's instincts as a salesman kicked into high gear. This was more than just a promising prospect. This was the type of client that dealerships dreamed of, someone whose purchases might extend beyond a single car into an ongoing relationship worth millions. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Beacon Luxury Autos," Logan called out, intercepting the distinguished visitor before anyone else could approach. The man regarded him with a measured smile and offered a firm handshake. Logan's mind raced as the name struck him as vaguely familiar, though he couldn't quite place it. Regardless, the elegant Rolls-Royce spoke volumes about the man's financial status. "Mr. Reed, it's an honor," Logan managed. "May I show you our newest arrivals? We just got a limited edition model." The visitor raised a hand gently, cutting him off. "Actually, I'm here about one specific car, the Azure Coupe in midnight blue." Logan's smile broadened at this. "Excellent choice, sir. One of only 15 produced this year. I'd be delighted to show you. It's right over here." "I know where it is," the visitor replied smoothly. "My wife visited yesterday and expressed interest in it." Logan's service smile remained, though confusion flickered in his eyes. "Your wife? I don't recall her coming in. Perhaps one of my colleagues assisted her." The visitor's expression turned noticeably colder. "No, Mr. Carter, you either helped her or you refused to help her. Miss Reed was in jeans and a white tee, and you suggested she might be more comfortable looking at pre-owned cars." The color drained from Logan's face as the realization hit him, accompanied by a soft gasp from Ethan, who had been watching nearby. "Mr. Reed," Logan stuttered, his smooth delivery failing him completely. "There must be some misunderstanding. We welcome all customers." At that moment, Robert Morgan stepped in, having sensed the brewing conflict. "Mr. Reed," he inquired. The visitor turned his attention to Robert. "You know, it's interesting. My wife founded and runs the Reed Foundation for Children with Disabilities. She has dedicated her life to this cause, raising over $50 million for specialized medical equipment and educational programs." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "She chooses to dress simply because she believes in staying connected to the people she helps. It's one of the many reasons I love her." Robert's face paled. "Mr. Reed, I assure you, this is not how we do business. We pride ourselves on our actions speaking louder than any mission statement." "Now, regarding the Azure," the visitor continued firmly, "I'm not here just to buy one car." At that, Logan's hope flickered briefly. "I was planning to purchase the Azure for my wife's sister, as Miss Reed intended, but I was also considering a fleet replacement for our corporate vehicles, 7 in all, and updating my personal collection," he said, his eyes lighting up at the prospect. Robert's eyes widened. A deal of that magnitude would easily meet their quarterly targets in one transaction. However, the visitor pressed on. "I'm beginning to wonder if this is truly the right place for such a significant investment." The showroom fell completely silent. Logan looked visibly ill. "Mr. Reed, I cannot apologize enough for this regrettable incident. I promise you, this is not how we conduct business. Please, allow us to make things right." The visitor considered this momentarily. "Perhaps there is a way forward," he said at last. "But it must be more than just selling me cars." Robert quickly added, "The Reed Foundation is hosting a benefit gala next month to raise funds for a new adaptive sports complex for children with physical disabilities." Logan, now mortified, was prompted as Robert continued, "I believe your presence there would be very enlightening." Logan swallowed hard. Not as a guest, I hope, the visitor clarified, but as a volunteer. Our foundation is always looking for extra hands to help with setup and to let people see firsthand the work being done, Robert explained. The message was clear. This was about teaching a lesson in human dignity, not merely making a sale. Additionally, the visitor addressed Robert. Perhaps the dealership should consider a training program on unconscious bias. I know a few excellent consultants. Robert nodded emphatically. Absolutely, we'd welcome that. Turning to Ethan, the visitor said, I'd like you to handle all the paperwork, starting with the Azure for my sister-in-law. Ethan's eyes widened as he replied, Thank you, sir. I'd be honored. Good, the visitor said decisively. Now let's discuss the specifics of the corporate fleet, he added as they moved toward Robert's office. Pausing before the Azure, he ran his hand along its smooth contour and remarked, My wife has impeccable taste, doesn't she? Behind them, Logan stood frozen, his perfect world crumbling as he realized that his true character was being revealed, not by how he treated those he deemed important, but by how he treated those he considered less so. A month later, the Reed Foundation's benefit gala transformed a grand city hotel into a celebration of possibility. Children with various disabilities and their families mingled with donors, medical professionals, and supporters. At the entrance, Logan, now dressed in an event staff uniform instead of his usual attire, helped guests and even assisted a young boy in a wheelchair. The past month had changed him profoundly. What had begun as a reluctant volunteer effort turned into a genuine commitment as he witnessed the challenges these children faced and the dignity with which they met them. Across the room, Sam, elegant in a simple blue dress, approached him. Despite knowing who she was, Logan was once again struck by her unpretentious nature. How are you finding the experience, Logan? She asked. He considered the question carefully and replied, It's humbling, to be honest. Sam nodded, adding, I hear young Calvin seems to really like you, referring to the boy in the wheelchair who was learning adaptive basketball from him. He's teaching me that I definitely have room for improvement, Logan admitted, with a genuine laugh that brought a smile to Sam's face. His expression grew serious as he said, Miss Reed, I know I've formally apologized, but I want to say it plainly. I am truly sorry for how I treated you. There's no excuse. You're right, she agreed, but without any hard feelings. What matters is that you learned that worth isn't measured by appearance, status, or possessions. Everyone deserves respect until they earn it, not the other way around. That's a valuable lesson, Logan acknowledged, thinking ruefully about the business they had nearly lost when Mr. Reed decided to purchase only the Azure and skip the additional fleet. It was worth every penny, he added sincerely. Later that evening, as the gala wound down, Logan watched Sam and Mr. Reed moving among the guests, not flaunting wealth or influence, but genuinely connecting with each child and family, reflecting on how drastically his own perspective had shifted in just a month. He realized that he would have dismissed someone like Sam based solely on her attire. Yet now he understood that true value ran much deeper than designer labels, expensive cars, or executive titles. As he helped Calvin back into his wheelchair after a photo session, the young boy grinned and said, You know, Mr. Carter, you're pretty cool for a grown-up. Logan smiled, replying, Coming from you, Calvin, that's the highest compliment I've had in a long time. He mused, We all make snap judgments based on appearances, don't we? But as I've learned, looking beyond the surface can reveal extraordinary people and opportunities that change lives. If this story resonates with you, I hope you share your thoughts, Sam added, inviting everyone to reflect on whether they'd ever misjudged someone based on how they looked or been misjudged themselves, as such experiences can inspire others. And remember, the true measure of wealth isn't found in your bank balance. It's about how you treat others when no one is watching. I'll see you in the next story, where another powerful lesson awaits.